has acted in a manner grossly incompatible with self-government and the rule of law.
Breaking news, 45th President of the United States and former President Donald John Trump will not be charged with incitement of insurrection. So you just heard the vote right there from the United States Senate. This all had to do with as many as 17 Republicans voting in favor of charging the president, but as you just heard, that has not going to happen. We're joined right now live by Jessica Levinson, law professor at Loyola, and also Matt Klink, a Republican strategist. We thank the two of you for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Matt, let's start with you, as you're a Republican strategist, and as I just mentioned right there, the key number was 17, and to my count, it looks like we only had 7 Republican senators who voted in favor of essentially charging the president with incitement of insurrection. And so can you identify who those senators are, and what do you think the political fallout is going to be for them?
Well, first of all, Trump was tried for, he was found not guilty of insurrection by the Senate. The only surprise here were that two additional Republicans, Senator Richard Burr from North Carolina and Senator Cassidy from Louisiana, switched their vote and voted to find the president guilty. Other than that, the original 5 were the 5 that voted to allow the trial in the Senate to occur in the first place. I don't believe that there will be any long-term ramifications from this. Mitch McConnell had said it was a vote your conscience vote. And look, ultimately, the House impeachment managers, they spent a week and convinced 2 Republican senators to move. That's the storyline here.
And Jessica Levinson, as we have you here, let me ask, what's the process moving forward? What does this mean for the 45th president of the United States now?
Well, it means that he will face no repercussions as a result of what happened on January 6th and before and after. So the president, there are obviously 2 different punishments when it comes to an impeachment. You can be removed from office or disqualified from holding another office. In this case, the president was already removed because his term expired. And the question was whether or not he would be disqualified from holding another office if he was convicted, and then the Senate decided to take another vote to essentially sentence him to disqualification. That won't happen, but the president, obviously the former president, still faces significant criminal exposure in both the federal and state courts.
Can you elaborate as to what the criminality might just be?
Sure. I don't think that President Trump will be charged for insurrection of violence. I think that there are other issues that are far more pressing and more likely. So on the federal level, for instance, you might see the president charged with some of the crimes that were detailed in the Mueller report, or I should say the activities that were detailed in the Mueller report, obstruction of justice. There could be questions of campaign finance violations. Remember back to the testimony of Michael Cohen, the president's personal attorney. Also issues dealing with the Trump organization and potentially if any financial crimes potentially arose and there was issues of banks involved, that could give rise to federal crimes. And then on the state level, similarly, issues dealing with the Trump organization and perhaps election fraud as well. So I think the president's legal docket will remain busy.
Are you referencing that phone call that the president made with the Secretary of State from the state of Georgia?
Yes, I am, where he directed the Secretary of State to find the votes necessary.
And then Matt Klink, as we have you now, Republican strategist, based on what Jessica just said, how do you think Republicans are going to act if these types of legal charges are levied against the former commander-in-chief?
Look, Donald Trump, for better or for worse at present, is one of the leaders of the Republican Party. I'll say that Donald Trump didn't create the conservative populist streak that's running through the Republican Party. He was the result of that conservative populist streak. That's going to be there going forward. And look, I think that you've already started to see the Republican Party pivot with Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy and other Republicans looking ahead to 2022. And you're starting to see battle lines already being drawn I will remind all your viewers that the party that is in the White House typically loses 4 Senate seats and 22 House seats in midterm elections. And if that happens, guess which party ends up controlling both houses of Congress? So there's a lot of road between here and there. But Donald Trump's legal troubles, he had them before he was president. He had them during the time he was president. And as Jessica highlighted, he's going to have a mountain of them when he leaves. I think that's already baked into the cake, and it's not going to influence certainly Republicans that voted for him. What the Republicans will be looking at, though, is what they can do to retake the House and the Senate to stop Joe Biden from pushing an agenda that a significant portion of America does not agree with.
Finally, 30 seconds for each of you. And Jessica, let's start with you. Can you talk about the 45th President of the United States and his legacy? What does this mean for his legacy?
I'm going to give you that horrible answer, which is I think a legacy isn't written for years. It's certainly not weeks later. What it shows, I think, is more about the legacy of the Senate Republicans than perhaps about President Trump. We know who President Trump was, who he is, what he does. There was maybe some infinitesimal question about what Senate Republicans would do. That question is now answered.
And Matt, I give you the floor here.
Donald Trump's legacy, he will be known as a president that was impeached twice. There's my master of the obvious statement for the day. But he's also the president who put 3 conservative justices on the Supreme Court. He didn't start any new wars, but I do think that history with perspective will not view Trump ultimately that kindly, in part because of his divisiveness and his harsh rhetoric. And all that being said, the Republican Party will live on and will fight another day.
Matt Klink, a Republican strategist, we thank you for your time, and Jessica Levinson, law professor at Loyola. We appreciate both of your expertise, and it's the breaking news that we've been covering this afternoon. Donald John Trump is acquitted after the Senate failed to reach a 2/3 threshold for a guilty vote. The final vote was 57 to 43, 7 Republicans voting to charge the president, all Democrats voting guilty, the rest of the GOP voting not guilty. This is a story we're going to continue to follow throughout this day. We'll have updates on the KTLA 5 News at 5 o'clock this evening, and you can also get the latest on KTLA.com. I'm Mark Mester reporting for the KTLA 5 News in Hollywood this afternoon. Now back to your regularly scheduled broadcast.